Careblazer, I am so excited to introduce you to my guest in today's video. He owns, created, and runs one of the most heartfelt care facilities I have ever heard about. And what I particularly like about our chat together, and what I think you are going to get out of this conversation, is he shares from the professional standpoint, the nursing home administration standpoint, what he believes about a lot of these common rules. Like, we may have all heard you should stay away from your loved one for a couple of weeks if you put them in a care facility, or now that they're in a care facility, you get to go back to being the spouse or the child. You don't have to be their caregiver anymore. And he shares his thoughts on this, which totally turns what we hear most of the time on its head. And it's so refreshing. It's so loving. It comes from such a caring place. He's doing amazing things, not only for the residents in his care facility, but also for the greater dementia community world. He's going to share a little bit about that. But we've included some photos from his facilities, some videos from his facilities, totally heartwarming, will totally make you feel like there are really amazing, great facilities out there, even though what we hear the majority of the time are the horror stories and facilities who just don't care. And let's face it, that's probably the majority of them, but it's not all of them. Let's hop in and hear from James Lee, the founder of Bella Groves, the most heartfelt care facility I have ever come across.
About 7 million people are believed to have dementia in the U.S. as of 2020. If current trends continue, more than 9 million Americans could have dementia by 2030 and 12 million by 2040.
Dementia is a disease that affects not only the person who has it, but also their family and friends who often don't know how to deal with the illness.
A lot of residents' family members, when they first came to join us, they thought, this is the end of their life. We just want a comfortable place for them in the end. And what they've found is that their lives are better, they're more joyful.
James Lee is the CEO of Bella Groves, a dementia care and education community.
You can absolutely have hope for their future. You can absolutely hope for great connections and new memories. Dementia is not the end.
Careblazers, I am so excited to introduce you to James Lee, who is the CEO and founder of Bella Groves, which is a care facility. And when I first met him, at least a couple of years ago, Bella Groves was an idea. It was sprouting. It was a plan, but it wasn't in place. But as we record this video now, Bella Groves is open. There's residents living there. You are the founder and CEO of an operating memory care facility. And I thought it would be a unique perspective and an amazing addition for our audience to hear from somebody like you and your perspective. What can help family members as they're starting to either look for placement, or maybe they've placed their loved one in a care facility and it still feels hard and overwhelming. So first of all, just introduce yourself briefly, anything I missed, and then we'll take it from there.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Natalie. It's amazing to watch all the work that you do, by the way, and be on this side of the camera. So that's pretty cool. So thanks for that. And secondly, part of my story is that I started in the field of senior care as a caregiver. So, while CEO and co-founder sounds really nice today, the reality is 15 years ago, I started on the floor providing care and really being completely new to the concept of dementia care. So there's a lot to dig into there. And then also on the personal side, I have been a caregiver of somebody living with dementia, and my wife is currently experiencing that for her own grandmother. So there's a lot of practical life experience in addition to the professional experience. And I'm excited to share with your audience some of the unique things we're doing at Bella Groves that is a result of all of those kind of unique experiences.
Yeah, I'd love to hear more about that, because I think a lot of times when people think about care facilities and memory care, it feels so stark. It feels so business-y. Yet as I've watched you and what you've done, it's very clear there's lots of heart, there's lots of love, there's lots of intentional thought on how to make this a place where the people living there, the residents and the family members, feel welcomed and heard. So can you just speak to what Bella Groves does to help foster that community that I think most family members wish their facilities had?
Yeah, thanks for the opportunity to speak to that. So, Bella Groves, what we really are, what I tell people is that we are a dementia caregiving organization. We ultimately want to help either unpaid, family, or professional caregivers to be better at what they do. And so it's not easy enough to say we're a dementia care community. We really want to be a source of education and empower people to be better at what they naturally want to be better at. So I would imagine that the vast majority, if not all of your audience, would tell you that they are not looking to kind of wash their hands clean of their caregiving responsibilities. They just want to be better at it, right? And so I have found over and over again that the one thing that really can equip you with that is knowledge, training, resources to better understand what your loved one is going through. And so we offer practical advice, training, and that really is the heart of Bella Groves. And then we've built everything around that. So to get very practical, we do have a dementia care community where up to 32 residents can live on site with us. So that's 2 16-room homes. That's also really important for us, and I think it would be important for your audience to know small environments matter a great deal compared to 50, 60, sometimes 80 or 100 or more rooms to a place. Dementia is such a nuanced thing that you have one person with dementia, and then you add a second person who has a completely separate set of needs, and then a third, and then a fourth. And you can imagine how dynamic that environment gets, even with 4 people, let alone 80 or more. So we have found that pods of 16 provide the right mix in addition to our higher staffing ratio. So that's one thing you're going to find here at our organization. We just tell you flat out, our caregiving ratio is 1 caregiver for every 4 residents.
Wow.
So if you do the math, when we have 32 residents, that means 8 caregivers between the 2 homes able to float around and do what they do. So small environment plus a high staffing ratio plus dementia training. I mean, intense dementia training. All of those things together give us a shot at doing this the right way.
Yes. And I'm just floored because I think what's the industry standard for staff to patient ratio? You would know more than me, but I think it's like 12-1 or 11-1.
Yeah, if you were to go and just pull random places across the US, I bet 1 in 12 is probably pretty close.
Yeah, when I was looking for facilities for my dad, that was like they would come out and say that. And I'm like, and that like you don't feel like as if that was a normal thing to say. And I'm like, it sounds horrible. How can one person care for 12 people is insane. So I have a question with the smaller pods, the smaller staff to patient ratio, which sounds amazing, with the attention on training. How is it that you guys are able to do this? But this is very much not the industry standard. Most care facilities, their staff have no training in dementia. They don't seem to know what they're doing. And it still feels like the family members are trying to figure it all out. And placements oftentimes isn't a relief of stress. It adds to it. How are you guys able to do this?
Yeah. I think this speaks to the fundamental understanding that our industry has about dementia. In other words, what we perceive dementia to be. And I would say that in my 15 years of experience prior to Bella Groves, most people in our industry, though they mean well, would likely describe dementia as like, okay, you can age in place. First, you're in independent living, then you're in assisted living, and then you're in memory care.
Right.
As if it's just a natural progression of aging. And so a lot of the dementia care environments that I have worked in and seen and are prevalent in offerings today, they treat dementia care as assisted living plus. So whatever we're doing in assisted living, let's just give quote unquote more support in a memory care environment and that'll do. So if you think about how most people are trained in assisted living, then dementia care almost becomes this like extra certification. Hey, you're trained in assisted living. Here's 4 hours of dementia training. As if dementia is just this little asterisk to add on.
And as if that 4 hours is going to cover everything and serve them for the rest of their, time there.
Yeah, it's like if you went to med school and you became a physician and then all of a sudden you said, oh, you know what, I also want to specialize in dementia care. And, you get some continuing education to become certified. It is kind of like that in senior living. And so dementia training tends to be a compliance-driven thing rather than from us. It is the core of what we do is the more knowledge you have, the right training at the right time, you're going to be better equipped to hopefully be more successful.
Yeah. I love it. I love what you all are doing. I just can't help but think in the back of my mind, why wouldn't other people do this? Because the way I would see it is that even if you are at a bigger facility, the more the staff actually becomes knowledgeable about dementia and how to respond to, challenges somebody might be having, the easier it is for the staff too. It's a win-win for the family members, for
Yes.
the person with dementia, as well as the staff. So how come other facilities can't get this?
I would say, at the risk of maybe offending my colleagues in the field, the larger places, the larger companies that provide dementia care, they certainly can do great dementia care. But I would say those are individualized to the caregiver or the activity director or the executive director who happens to be there. But systematically, it's not usually the case. When you have a lot of layers of your organization, you got to pay for a lot of overhead. You got regionals, you got divisional people, you got conferences, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so what you could otherwise use towards staffing ratios, higher wages, investing in training, have to go necessarily to other parts of the business. And so for us, we're a small privately owned business. We don't have any corporate investors outside of our own families. And so we can take the longer road of, we know we'll be profitable in the long run. We just don't need to return an investment to some third party investor within the first 2 years. So I think that's part of it, Natalie. The other, and this is a little bit of the secret sauce behind the scenes, which I am happy to give because I want more people to do what we do. I will be honest with you, the financials of a small standalone memory care are not easy. It is not easy to run a successful business like this. And so most people, rightfully so in their mind, they're going to pad their risk by adding more units, by having a little bit less staffing ratio, because you just can't risk such a low margin, right? So the way that we are kind of combating that is that we are working to provide services to our greater community that have nothing to do with our residential side. So what this means is there are a huge number of people who don't need assisted living, maybe in the middle parts of helping someone at home, and they just need more guidance. So we can charge people for that. We can say, hey, Natalie, you're trying to take care of your grandmother, and, we can provide you with some coaching services every month, and we'll help you navigate doctor's appointments and medications and food, etc. And we can charge you a much, much more practical monthly fee because you're not paying for our real estate. You're not paying our mortgage, right?
Yeah, and I think that goes in line with what the research shows most families want is to keep their loved one at home as long as possible.
Yeah, I think that should be a major goal of our industry, is helping people do what they want to do. That was our goal for our family. And I do think that there is a phase of dementia care where residential living, like what we do, can actually benefit the person a little bit more than you struggling with it at home. I do want to say that because I think that there are certain things that, even equipped with the best knowledge, it is hard to combat the natural fatigue that comes with being the sole care provider, social opportunities that aren't there that we can help provide. So there's some things that I think, especially towards the latter part of the journey, we can do a little bit more efficiently, but that also doesn't mean that it's impossible at home.
Yeah. I always say care facilities exist for a reason.
Yeah.
People need them at some point. And not everybody, but some people do. And in some cases, sometimes there's a lot of shame or, for having to maybe place their loved one in a care facility. And in some cases, I say that's the best thing somebody can do, because we don't know everybody's personal situation, the caregiver's health, the other resources and respite potential they have. So care facilities exist for a reason, and they're incredibly helpful for certain situations, especially when they're run like how Bella Groves is run.
Yeah.
And I really want this to be helpful for Careblazers at home watching. What would you say? Because I'm pretty sure you would agree most facilities aren't run like yours. What can family members do to help their situation if their loved one is in a care facility and the staff there aren't trained in dementia, don't have ongoing, maybe even care about specific dementia help? Like, is there anything from your perspective as an owner, administrator, like what can family members do?
The first thing that jumps to mind is the level of engagement that families need with the care facility. So first and foremost, the executive director, the top of the umbrella when it comes to that community. So have a relationship with the executive director. If your normal point of contact is the health and wellness director or the nurse at the community, which is usual, that's kind of who you talk to most, I would say build a relationship with the executive director because they will top down provide a lot of coordination. A lot of health and wellness directors, they're so busy that they can only kind of take whatever you're taking time to share and provide feedback to, but it may not translate to the other people in the departments. So activities, as it's a really clear example, the physical care aspect of living in a community may not be the only thing that is going to contribute to your loved one's happiness. And in a lot of cases, maybe food or activity, some other part of life is going to interfere with that. So the executive director is the best person to make sure, hey, all of the parties are interrelated activities, are taken care of here. So I'd say number one, do that. Number two is that if you come to the table with your own dementia knowledge, that is really, really going to help them because they will already have a basis of knowledge. But if you keep bringing to your meetings with the executive director, hey, I saw this really interesting article about person-centered care. I'd really love to know a little bit more about that and how we can incorporate that for my mom here. And so if the community doesn't have the depth of dementia knowledge, it is perfectly okay for you to bring that to the table. And they will feel more empowered, I think, because they will know, hey, this person's pretty well informed. They're talking about person-centered or person-directed care. Now, that'll really impress somebody. If you go and say, hey, I really want to understand the difference between person-centered care and person-directed care. Would you mind, maybe we can add that as a topic of conversation when we're together the next time?
Yeah, I love that. Okay, so I know there's people right now watching thinking, how do I even get a hold of the executive director? I have no idea who they are. I've been working with the nurse or the direct care team. What do they do?
It sounds so simple to say it this way, but it is the most direct route. You call the community. And, I think if you approach it as a very positive, proactive thing, that I've enjoyed talking to you, Nurse Natalie, but as I get better educated about my loved one's care, I really want to involve your executive director and any other key members of your leadership team. So would you mind helping to set that up? And so if it doesn't feel urgent and it doesn't feel like it's in response to something going wrong or criticism, and I genuinely just want to set up the partnership here in the long run, just directly ask your point of contact to bring the executive director in.
Yeah, really just empower, like family members have power here. And it's okay to request meetings and request certain people. That's within their power to do.
Not only is it in your power, I think it's your responsibility. When you choose a memory care facility, you are inviting someone into your care plan. That is really, really important to keep in mind. Choosing an assisted living facility doesn't mean, okay, somebody's going to take the lead here and they'll just bring me in when they need me. It is still your family's care plan, and you've just invited a care team to be a part of that. So whenever we're talking with families, we actually we have a term for it called the social contract of dementia care. And what that means is that there are 4 parties that we are looking to coordinate from here until end of life. And that's Bella Groves, your family, medical professionals, and the greater community at large, because a big part of what we do is keeping the person integrated into society. So we talk about that, and every time we meet with families, it's like, okay, let's talk about the 4 parties that are involved here. So certainly families should feel empowered to not just contribute, but honestly take the lead in these care conversations.
I love it. And it speaks to this bigger wish that I had. I think a lot of times when we think about the family member and the person with dementia being placed, and then we think about the community, it almost feels like they're at odds so much based on what we hear. It's like, if we came together, the goals are the same, to give the best care possible to this person who is now residing here. Like, we share the same goal. How do we come together more as a team together versus you're not doing this, so being too demanding.
Yeah,
there's this, it's it doesn't need to be that way.
Yeah, I can't quite articulate, Natalie, why it exists, but I can affirm what you're saying is that there seems to be this natural adversarial relationship. It's a cordial adversarial relationship, but it does feel a lot like families have to come to the table and advocate for their loved one as if the care facility was not doing that. Here's kind of my best guess at why this happens. I think that care facilities, first of all, they look to dementia care as just a care focused thing. And so they take on the role of subject matter expert when it comes to care. And that really excludes people who don't have care knowledge. And so that relationship already starts off with like, if I have more information and you don't, you're going to feel like you're the party in kind of power here. And then the other part of it too is that I think the immense family guilt that happens following a quote unquote placement in the traditional sense is that, okay, well, I'm not there doing the showers and meals and taking them to doctor's appointments anymore. So the only role I have is to advocate for them. And so I think because of this misunderstanding of what the partnership should look like, caregivers naturally just take on the responsibility of, well, I got to do something. And that means, looking out for her. And then I'm going to tell the team whenever those things aren't happening. So in order for us to change that natural dynamic that kind of tends to happen here is at the very, very beginning, we talk about, look, this is a partnership. And the best we can do from our side is to provide some context to dementia. And the best thing that you can provide is you have all of the deep knowing of your loved one. You have all the historical knowledge of this person that's going to make them a whole person from here until end of life. So we can't do it without what you've got. You can't do it without what we've got. And let's keep working together.
Yeah, and I think that's beautiful, but I think that's what Bella Groves is doing so naturally. That doesn't happen a lot in other facilities. And it is like realizing, recognizing, acknowledging the family member is a really big key piece here and has a lot to offer. And I think sometimes it can be the common experience where the caregiver feels like they're kind of now pushed to the side, and that's really hard.
There's a saying in our industry that I'll admit I used to say this until I realized what it meant. There's a saying that perpetuates this feeling that there's this separation between facility and family. And usually salespeople say it when they're signing the agreement. They'll say something like, well, Natalie, now that you've chosen our community, you don't have to be the caregiver anymore. You can be their daughter again. And it means well. But if you think about what that implies, it implies that caregiving and daughterhood are separate things. And they're not. They're one and the same. And so I used to say that because it's just something I heard in the industry so much, but I don't say it anymore. I say, thank you for inviting us to be a part of your care team. We're really excited to add some knowledge and some resources that you haven't had before, but we're excited to be on your team and we will contribute X, Y, and Z, but you're still very much in the driver's seat here.
Yeah. And I love it because also the saying like, now you don't have to be the caregiver. Now you can be whatever, like daughter, son, spouse. While I understand where that comes from, every single person I've worked with that has ended up placing their loved one in a care facility, their care continues.
Of course.
It does not stop just because their loved one's in a facility.
Yeah. It transforms. And I think when we take some of the care responsibilities on, like the showers and dressing and food preparation, all of those things, what it does is it gives families a little bit of respite, a little bit of break to then just reconcile, okay, this is the thing that I need to be able to help with. And also, the other thing we don't talk about a lot as an industry is that families are grieving through this entire process, and that really it is our responsibility to help them address that. And it sounds really odd to say it this way, but we take the worry out of people's lives so that they can focus on grief. We don't want to remove the journey of grief from you because we can't. But what we can do is take some worry and concern away, the guessing game of dementia care away, so you can deal with the grief that comes along with this. And I think when we help families to feel more knowledgeable and to have the time and space to navigate their grief, they're in a better place to support their loved one. And I think that is the unique thing about Bella Groves that we're trying to create, is this example to the rest of our industry that it's not about putting a care plan of what time am I going to do showers and dressing, what time are they going to eat. That's really the simple, you don't even have to think about that. It's so simple to put in place. But the harder work is understanding, what is the family going through and how do we help them to navigate all of that now?
Yeah. And that really gets to the holistic care plan, incorporating not only the person with dementia, but everybody that's impacted, and how do we make the most positive benefit here? And it's very clear that what you've done with Bella Groves is to really, like, probably because of your own caregiving experience as well, like put yourself in that position and looked at the bigger picture. It's not just a care task or a checkbox or a compliance issue. It's really a whole person, a whole system, a whole community plan coming together.
Yeah.
I think it's quite beautiful.
Well, thank you. Earlier you said something that I also wanted to comment on, that a lot of families feel guilt when they find this placement or partner in the care plan. But I articulated this way to somebody before, and now it's stuck with me. So my father went through cancer diagnosis and treatment, and ultimately he passed away with cancer. But there was never a point in his battle with cancer where I felt guilty for getting medical help. There wasn't a moment where I was like, oh, I'm such a bad son because I don't know how to give chemotherapy, right? So, when you apply the same level of guilt to any other medical diagnosis that could happen, nobody would ever in their right mind think, oh gosh, I'm a bad son because I've gotten medical help. They would think I'm doing what I need to enrich his life, extend his life, and give quality of his life while possible. It is the same way that you should approach dementia care. Just because we can't see it the same way that we can see cancer or heart disease, it is just as real of a diagnosis. And if you wouldn't feel guilty going to an oncologist for a cancer diagnosis, you should not in any way feel guilty reaching out for dementia expertise when your loved one is diagnosed with dementia.
Yeah, beautifully said. It's so true. And I think it speaks a lot to just the misunderstanding, the stigma, of dementia in general, misunderstanding even within the healthcare community.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I think that's where we see shifts are starting to happen, which is beautiful, where we're talking more about it. We're acknowledging what's, typical, and things are starting to change, but it's not been this way.
Yeah, and it keeps circling back to education as the foundation for all of the change, even internally as an industry.
Yeah.
But families, if you come equipped with the knowledge of dementia and what it is and what it is not, you are going to be a better leader in your loved one's care plan.
Yeah. Okay. I want to ask one final question, because I get it a lot, and I love asking it to people who are on the opposite side, who are involved in the care facility. So many Careblazers who are in the process of placing their loved one are told, don't come around this amount of time when you place your loved one, or, and so I would love to know your thoughts on this, being on the administration side.
Oy, okay. I'll try to be not so long-winded with this. I really hate that default phrase of, and for whatever reason, it's 2 weeks across our industry. People say, don't come around for at least 2 weeks. I think that is coming from a place of really misunderstanding what your role is together. So if I chose a new school for my 4-year-old, a pre-K school, and they told me, hey, look, we're not going to communicate with you for 2 weeks. Don't come around, just drop off and go, I would be seriously concerned. If instead they said, everyone's orientation or introduction to this is going to be unique. And so we are going to do our best to establish trust with your loved one. And we will be communicative with you throughout this process to let you know how you can support that. So sometimes that's a day or two. Sometimes that's a week. Sometimes it's longer. But the truth is, we won't know that until we get started. So stand by, and you'll do your part and we'll do our part. And let's just keep talking until we feel like we've gotten to a good, stable state.
Yeah. And this idea that all people with dementia who end up being placed require the same 2 weeks of no contact with family members is insane. We're talking about individual people. There should be an individualized plan.
Yeah. I mean, it seems silly to me now, but again, these are things that I've said in the industry because I think there's just this wide brushstroke of this is dementia and this is dementia care. And so you just create a process to follow. And so it's just funny to me, Natalie, hearing myself talk about this, because at one point I said all of these things and I believed them at that time. But that's also the benefit of growing and learning and educating yourself. You do better.
Yeah. And the whole community, society, industry, we're all learning, we're all getting better. We didn't always have it right. We still don't always have it right.
Yeah.
And I think in some ways it's a desire for there to be simple answers when it's not a simple condition. And sometimes the answer is not going to be simple. And sometimes it is going to be, it depends. And as much as none of us really like that, it's the truth. And so the more we can embrace that and, adjust accordingly, the better for everybody.
Yeah. That makes me think about, if you approach as a family caregiver, if you approach a selection of a care community from the mindset of, I have a educated guess on how to support my loved one, I'm going to invite new members onto my team, and together we'll have a better educated guess about what to do. That's really the spirit of the collaboration, is nobody has the right answers. Even, we have better educated guesses, but we still only have part of the plan. So because you know more about this person, you are more likely to make sure that the holistic care and holistic plan is being executed. So you have that. We have the dementia knowledge and coordination with the physician. So it just all goes back to that social contract, but from the premise of we're going to become better educated guessers together rather than, okay, you know everything and good luck.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a core foundation of caring and communication, but how that happens and what ends up happening from there, that differs from person to person. So I love that you've allowed room for that, even though it can be really hard as a business and an organization trying to come up with standard operating procedures and communicating to a team. It's not the greatest thing, but I think it's the realistic thing. And it's a breath of fresh air to hear you share that and just, even the own evolution you've had going through the process. So it's beautiful. Where are you located if somebody does have a family member with dementia and they are looking for possible placement?
Sure. We're located in northern San Antonio. So we're in a town called Bulverde. There's a Bulverde Spring branch of the two small towns near us. But, even if you're not looking for placement for your loved one, go back earlier in the episode and think about we're trying to help people who are at home. And so if you feel like you're doing a lot of guesswork when it comes to your loved one's support and care, give us a call and maybe we can help you to better navigate what you're doing now.
Where would they go to find you?
Our website is bellagroves.com. So just like it sounds, beautiful. And then groves is like a small group of trees. And the website is the easiest place to go. We also provide our pricing online, which is also uncommon in our industry. I don't know why, but our pricing's on there. All the information you need to even get started is available online, or just come on by and meet us.
Awesome. I love it. We'll be sure to link to bellagroves.com in the description below. James, anything else you want to say?
I think that where I want to end up on this conversation, speaking directly to family caregivers, is that there is nothing wrong with your lack of knowledge, which really is the basis of where I think a lot of people struggle. You are not less than because you're struggling. You are not less than because you don't know how to handle repetitive questions. You can have resources like you, Natalie, and there are lots of people trying to speak directly to the family caregiver now. But even equipped with all of that knowledge, this is a very, very, very difficult process. And so the best thing you can do is become more educated now, equip yourself with that knowledge. I would say the best thing is form a social support group around you. And it may not be immediate members of your family. It may be other people who are going, through this themselves, because they will suspend the judgment when they're listening to your question or your concern. Whereas your close family and friends who aren't in the caregiving stress may have a tone of inquisitiveness in their voice. Other people who are going through what you're going through will listen and suspend judgment. So take care of yourself. That's the best way to take care of someone else.
I love it. Thank you so much for sharing your perspective and speaking so freely and just letting people get a glimpse on the other side and realizing that we all are trying to do the same thing. We all do have the same goal. There are really great people, running facilities, trying to really make a big positive difference. And we don't have to be adversaries. We can come together, and Bella Groves is living proof of that. So just thank you so much for the time to share.
Thank you, Natalie. Appreciate it.
Wonderful.
Care is kind of secondary, in our opinion, to joy. So we're trying to dispel some fears and misconceptions about what dementia is.
Also, Nico gets a belly rub for every person who subscribes from this video. So if you haven't already, click the red subscribe button. It's totally free, and Nico says thank you very much.